She called the cops and screamed, "Arrest him!" But I was on my own land. Her voice echoed across the driveway like she owned the place, her finger pointing straight at me as if I was some kind of intruder. The officers hesitated, looking confused, but Karen didn't stop. She waved a crumpled paper in the air, yelling, "He moved out without my approval. This is HOA violation." The neighbors peeked from behind their curtains, some shaking their heads, others pretending not to see. My chest tightened, not from fear, but from the insult. This wasn't just my house, it was mine, paid in full, every brick, every nail. No HOA owned me. Still, watching the flashing lights outside my yard while she grinned like she had already won, that cut deep. I didn't say much. I just leaned against my truck and let her talk. My son stood quietly beside me, hands in his pockets, letting her dig her own grave. She thought she had all the power because she had that fake notice taped to my front door. The same one I ripped down this morning. "You can't live here anymore," she'd hissed earlier, shoving the paper into my chest. And now she wanted me dragged away in handcuffs in front of everyone. The cop finally turned to me and asked, "Sir, do you have proof of ownership?" Before I could answer, Karen butted in again, her voice shrill. "Don't listen to him, he's trespassing." "I'm the HOA president." My son tilted his head slightly, his eyes sharp, and for a split second, I caught the smirk tugging at his lips. Karen had no idea who she was messing with, because she thought I was just a simple homeowner who forgot the rules. But the truth? My son wasn't just standing there. He was FBI. And he was about to show her exactly what happens when you fake authority on the wrong doorstep. The moment Karen puffed up her chest and shouted, "Arrest him already. What are you waiting for?" My son finally stepped forward. Calm, silent, but with that look in his eyes that always made people second-guess themselves. He pulled out his wallet and flipped it open, flashing his badge so fast that Karen almost didn't register it. Almost. Her smirk dropped the second those three letters stared back at her. FBI. The two cops froze, glancing at each other. Karen's voice cracked as she tried to recover. "Wait, this has nothing to do with the FBI. This is an HOA matter. He violated the community rules." She waved her fake notice again, her hand trembling now, but my son cut her off cold. "This isn't an HOA matter anymore," he said flatly. "This is fraud. This is harassment. And if you keep pushing, it becomes impersonation of authority." His tone didn't rise, didn't waver. It was steady, sharp, and it sliced right through her fake confidence. The neighbors had stepped further out now, phones recording, whispers growing. Karen darted her eyes around, realizing her stage was turning into a trap. No, he's lying. He's not FBI," she shrieked. But the cops weren't looking at me anymore. They were looking at her. I finally spoke, my voice low but clear. "Check the county records. This house has been mine for years. There's no HOA here. She's been trespassing and threatening me with fake documents." Karen stumbled back, clutching that paper like it was a shield. But everyone could see it. Her story was falling apart. And for the first time, the cops turned their attention not on me, but on her. And just when I thought it couldn't get any better, my son leaned closer to her and whispered so only she and I could hear. "You picked the wrong family." Karen's face went pale, but she still tried to claw her way out. "You don't understand," she stammered, her voice breaking. "I'm the one in charge here. Everyone follows my rules, everyone." She jabbed her finger at the officers as if she could order them around too. But the cops weren't buying it anymore. One of them finally stepped closer, reaching for the so-called HOA notice in her hand. The paper was shaking so badly it almost slipped through her fingers. When the officer read it out loud, the whole crowd laughed. The header wasn't even real. It was just a Word document with a clip art logo. "This isn't a legal notice," the officer said firmly. "Ma'am, where did you even get this?" Karen's lips quivered, and for a moment I thought she'd break down, but instead she doubled down. "He's dangerous. He's violent. He threatened me and my family." Her words cut through the air, and I felt my stomach twist, not from guilt but from the sheer audacity of her lies. Gasps rose from the neighbors. Some looked at me with doubt, others kept recording, hungry for the drama. But my son didn't flinch. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it up high. The video rolled, clear security footage of Karen herself marching onto my porch, taping the fake notice and laughing into her phone while she muttered, "That'll teach him." The crowd erupted, whispers turning into shouts. Karen froze. Her mask cracked wide open in front of everyone. "And the best part? My son hadn't even shown the rest of the footage yet, the part where she bragged about calling her friends dressed as cops if I didn't listen. The officer's voice dropped, firm and cold. "Ma'am, I suggest you stop talking right now." But Karen couldn't. She clenched her fists and spat out the words, "You don't know who I am. I run this neighborhood." That's when my son leaned back and said loud enough for the cameras to catch, "Not anymore." The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the soft buzz of neighbors' phones recording every second. Karen's chest heaved, her eyes darting wildly like a cornered animal. She tried one last desperate move, grabbing her phone and dialing fast. "I'll show you. My officers are on their way. They'll deal with you," she screamed, pacing in circles as though she still had power. The real cops exchanged a look, unimpressed. One of them muttered, "Officers? Ma'am, we're standing right here." But Karen ignored him, holding the phone to her ear, nodding frantically as if someone on the other end was giving her commands. The crowd stirred, confused, until the sound of screeching tires tore through the street. A black SUV rolled up, and out stepped two men in fake uniforms, badges glinting cheap under the streetlight. The neighbors gasped, pulling back. One of the men barked, "Step away from the property. He's under HOA arrest." The words alone made the real cops stiffen in disbelief. "HOA arrest? That wasn't even a thing." But Karen clapped her hands together, smug returning to her face. "See, I told you. You can't stop me." My son's jaw tightened. He didn't move toward them, didn't reach for a weapon. He just calmly pulled a small recorder from his pocket, hit play, and Karen's own voice filled the air. "If he doesn't listen, we'll send my boys in uniforms. He won't know the difference." The neighbors erupted again, phones zooming in, capturing every angle. The fake officers froze mid-step, realizing too late that the trap wasn't for me. It was for them. The real cops now turned, hands on their holsters. "Ma'am," one said firmly, "you've just crossed into felony territory." Karen's triumphant grin faltered, her face collapsing into panic. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I let out a laugh, short, sharp, and full of the relief I'd been holding back. Karen spun toward the fake officers like they were her last lifeline. "Do something! Arrest him now," she shouted, her voice cracking. But the men hesitated, eyes flicking between the real cops, the crowd, and my son's badge still shining in the porch light. The street was buzzing, neighbors whispering, recording, some even yelling, "Lock her up!" The pressure was building, and Karen didn't even see it. The taller fake officer tried to bluff. "This is official HOA business. You have no jurisdiction here." He puffed his chest, but his voice wavered. My son stepped closer, steady as a rock, and said, "Funny, because impersonating an officer falls directly under my jurisdiction." His words hit like a hammer. The real cops didn't wait. In a flash, they moved in, shoving the two imposters against their SUV. Metal cuffs snapped tight, the sound ringing through the night. The crowd cheered, phones high in the air. Neighbors finally brave enough to shout, "Justice!" Karen's scream sliced through the chaos. "No, this isn't how it's supposed to go." She rushed forward, grabbing at the fake notice crumpled in the officer's hand, but he pulled it away easily. "Ma'am," he said sharply, "you're done." She froze, breathing hard like she was searching for some magic way out. Then she did something no one expected. She dropped to her knees in the middle of the street, tears streaming down her face. "You don't get it," she sobbed. "This neighborhood is mine. Without me, it's nothing." The crowd fell quiet for a moment, the weight of her words hanging heavy. But my son stepped forward, voice steady, carrying through the night. "No, Karen, without freedom, it's nothing. And you tried to take that from every single person here." The neighbors erupted again, louder this time, siding with us. And for the first time, Karen realized the power she thought she had was completely gone. Karen's breakdown didn't earn her sympathy. It made her look weaker, more desperate. The neighbors who once stayed silent now stepped forward, voices sharp and fearless. "You bullied us for years," one woman shouted. Another man added, "You fined me for planting flowers in my own yard." The street filled with anger, every story spilling out at once, and suddenly Karen wasn't facing just me. She was facing the entire neighborhood. She tried to shout them down. "You all needed me. I kept this place perfect." But the truth was out and no one feared her anymore. My son let the voices build until Karen was practically drowning in them. Then he raised his hand, silencing the crowd like a switch. Enough, he said firmly. This isn't about rules. This is about abuse of power. The real cops nodded, their patience gone. One stepped forward with a pair of cuffs, but Karen jerked back, wild-eyed. Don't you dare. I'll sue every single one of you. I'll burn this place to the ground before you touch me. Her threats cut through the air, but they only sealed her fate. That's when my son pulled up the final piece of footage. Her in broad daylight, bragging on a recorded call. They're all sheep. They'll believe whatever I tell them. I can take his house, his truck, his life if I want. The crowd gasped, the officers' faces hardened, and Karen's knees buckled beneath her. The cuffs clicked around her wrists. The sight was electric. The tyrant of the neighborhood being marched down the street, screaming curses as cameras flashed from every porch. For years she controlled everyone with fear, but tonight, she was powerless, and as the SUV door slammed shut behind her, I finally let the words slip, the ones I'd been holding in for years. HOA Karen thought she owned my house, but all she owned was her downfall. The SUV pulled away with Karen inside, her screams fading into the night. The crowd didn't scatter. Nobody wanted to leave. It felt like the end of a war. Neighbors standing shoulder to shoulder, almost in disbelief that the monster who ruled them was finally gone. Some were smiling, some wiping tears, but every single one of them looked free. One old man stepped forward, his cane tapping the pavement. Son, he said to me, voice heavy with relief, we thought we'd never see this day. She had us all trapped. His words made my chest tighten. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I'd been fighting for all of them without even knowing it. My son placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. This isn't over yet, Dad. She'll face charges, fraud, harassment, maybe even conspiracy. He looked at the neighbors. But for tonight, you all have your peace back. The cops confirmed it too. One officer said, we'll be filing charges first thing in the morning. And don't worry, this neighborhood isn't under HOA authority. She lied to every one of you. The gasp that followed was sharp. Years of fake fees, fake threats, fake control, all crumbled in an instant. Some neighbors started hugging, others cheering. A woman whispered, I can plant my garden again. Another man muttered, no more bogus $200 fines for parking my truck. It was simple stuff, but to them it was everything. I looked at my son. He didn't smile, but there was pride in his eyes. And quietly, so only I could hear, he said, this is why I do what I do. In that moment, I realized Karen hadn't just lost her fake power. She'd united an entire neighborhood against her. And tomorrow, when her face hit the news, the rest of the world would know exactly who she really was. The next morning, the sun felt different, warmer, freer. The street that had always carried tension now buzzed with laughter and clinking coffee mugs as neighbors gathered outside, talking like family for the first time in years. Karen's house sat dark and empty, police tape across the front door. Her reign was finished, and the quiet was almost surreal. I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, watching my son scroll through his phone. News alerts were already popping up. Fake HOA president arrested for fraud and harassment. Her mugshot stared back from the screen, eyes wide and furious but powerless. The same neighbors she'd ruled over were now sharing the article, leaving comments like good riddance and justice finally served. One little girl from down the block rode her bike up to me and said, thank you, mister. My mom said we don't have to move now. That hit me harder than anything Karen ever tried. I smiled and told her, you never let anyone scare you off your own home. My son stood, his voice steady, but carrying that edge of pride. Dad, people like her always think they're untouchable. But the law's not on their side. Not when you've got proof. Not when you've got people willing to stand up. He looked around at the neighbors who now waved at us like old friends. This community isn't hers anymore, it's yours. I leaned back, let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding, and said the words that felt carved into my bones. I didn't fight for this country just to be told I can't live in my own house. Freedom means standing your ground even when someone tries to steal it with lies. The neighbors cheered, some clapping, some shouting, Amen. And for the first time, our street felt like America was supposed to, free, proud, and untouchable. And as the flag at the end of the block caught the morning breeze, I knew one thing for sure. HOA Karen was gone, but the lesson she left behind would never be forgotten.